So first of all, we know that if Amuro Ray were to fall into the Spring of Drowned Girl, he'd come out looking like a girl version of himself as opposed to looking like female Ranma. We'd have to have a Spring of Drowned female
Entry
Ranma
log.
for him to actually pull
It has
off
been
that sort of charade.
3 weeks
However,
since we begun our
question
research
that
into the
emerges
Jusenkyo
is,
curse.
would
It's been a
female
difficult
Amuro
task, but
Ray be
thankfully,
type
after I
if
myself
the
had
girl
fallen
that
into
drowned
the
in
Spring
the
of Drowned
spring
podcaster,
was
it's become
not
much
a new
simpler.
type?
I'm
So here's what
I'm
we
learning
thought.
so
Okay.
many new
A new
things,
type
and
is a
we're
person
going
who
over
reached
so
a
many
new
more
stage
details
of
than I
human
thought we could
evolution
fit
from
into a
Gundam
single
fandom.fandom.com.
episode. Last time we discussed
So they
the
are
Jusenkyo
different
5
enough from
and the way
humans
their
to be a distinct
transformations
thing.
impact
So,
their lives, but also
girl
raise
Ranma,
implication about the curse
probably not a
itself.
new
We've been
type.
able to figure out their
Therefore,
ability
I
to
would
use
theorize
tools like a
that
human would,
Amuro
even
Ray
in
would lose
animal
his new
form. We
typeness
we
if
were
he
able to
were
figure
fall
out
into Spring
their
of Drowned
favorite
Girl.
foods
But this
and
also
whether or
creates
not
a
their transformations
new
make them
way
more
we
or
could
less
create
likely
artificial new
to be
types
forced to do a
during
pop
the,
album cover.
Universal Century.
All
For example,
important parts
if,
of our research, and I'm glad we were
Amuro
able to
Ray
get that
drowned
done.
in the Spring
That is, of
Jusenkyo,
course,
and again,
me,
drowning
myself,
doesn't mean actual drowning.
Elena
Drowning
/
means immersion
hedgey,
plus loss of
the
consciousness.
host of
So,
Don't
for
Know What to
example, let's
Do,
say he
everyone's
ejected
favorite
from a
podcast, and it's only going to be
spaceship
even
or
more their
crashing
favorites
Gundam
once
and
this
fell
research
into a
comes out.
spring
And of course, I do
and
have
lost
the
consciousness
assistance
temporarily, then recovered.
of my
That would
new
now be a
helper,
Spring of
Symbolicgodzilla.
Drowned
They've been newly reformed. They've been a
and we
great
could then
help.
use that new type
Although I
spring,
did notice a
create
few
new types,
strange things
which, if we
during
put
our
them in
research.
waterproof robots,
I
they
keep
would be
finding
able
these
to pilot
pages
as new
like this
types,
one. It
which would
says,
give us a tremendous
"Mwahaha,
edge
she
in
has
the
no
war
idea.
against
Soon the
Neo
podcast will be mine.
Now, an
Wait,
artificial
this
new
isn't
type.
my
So we've
journal.
got,
Oops, wrong book."
something called cyber new
I have
types.
no idea who could have written
They were made
that,
in labs,
but it's very
they
concerning.
did
I think someone might be
enhancements.
attempting to
They're called
sabotage our
cyber new
research.
types, but we don't know
But
if it's cybernetics. But
nevertheless,
they
we
had
pull
debilitating
through. We
eyes.
still have a
They
lot
had
more to cover
difficulty
beyond
controlling
just
their
the main
powers,
cast. This is where
and they had
the real
huge mood
research
swings.
has
They were
to
very unreliable.
go
Whereas I
into
think
high
these
gear.
Jusenkyo new types
And
that I am proposing
it
would
looks
be
like
much more
they're
effective in
finishing
combat as
going over their
long
notes.
as
Everyone
we keep them
enjoy.
dry.
We'll have these out to you as soon as possible.
So that's my suggestion for how to use Ranma technology, aka Ranma tech, to win the war against Neo Zeon.
Okay, so we good?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you gave me a chance to really cover all of that because I wasn't sure it was gonna all make it into the episode because it's some really important stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I was paying attention the whole time.
Thanks.
Anyways, I think we're ready to continue. I just have to finish drinking this this hot tea. I have you. Oh no, it's spilling everywhere! Okay, so sorry for the mix-up. We're back. We are ready to continue our research. Where were we?
Well, we've covered Ranma, we've covered Genma, we've covered Roga, we've covered Shampoo, and we've covered Moose. So I feel like it's logical to go for the next most prominent transforming character, which would be Pantyhose Taro.
Oh, okay. All right. Pantyhose Taro is kind of a big one. He's pretty prominent enough to get his own episode. So I was thinking we could go over some of the smaller examples first, just to get those out the way.
All right, sure.
Does that sound
That's
good?
fine.
All right, so let's put a pin in that. So let me look at this list. What seems like the least important? Okay, got it. The Spring of Drowned Pterodactyl.
All right, the Spring of Drowned Pterodactyl. Now, if I remember correctly, we don't know when that pterodactyl died. It might have been prehistoric, but it could also be a modern pterodactyl a la Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, who's to say? Same with the saber-toothed tiger. They both featured in the same episode. Not much to know about those transformations themselves. The context is literally Ranma and his friends have multiple types of Jusenkyo powder, and they don't know which one is which. And then while they're trying to test them out, like a bird falls into the water for one of them and then emerges as a pterodactyl. And then a cat jumps into the saber-toothed tiger one and emerges as that. And then The joke is that Ranma and the others are like, well, now we know which one's the Spring of Drowned Man. Like, they don't seem to care about the fact that they just released a bunch of prehistoric animals loose onto the city, which is why at the end of the episode, that's the punchline. Like, he turns on the TV and that's on the news. And it's like, wah, wah. But yeah, both the pterodactyl and the saber-toothed tiger are only on screen for like a minute tops. So we don't know much about those. But they do bring up a very interesting thing in that both of them are the result of Jusenkyo powder. So this is interesting because there are actually two different stories that involve the powder, and they allegedly work differently. Because there's the transformation itself, but then there's also the transformation of whatever body of water you put the powder in, which also seems to function under potentially different rules.
Okay.
So, for context, there is a story where Shampoo tries to blackmail Ranma into going on a date with her by saying she has purchased this super expensive Jusenkyo powder that can cure him. And she even demonstrates it by just pouring it into a bucket and then putting a dog in there, and then it turns into a boy. Of note, in the manga, he just becomes a random, normal-looking boy. In the anime, they decided to make it a cameo and make him look like Ataru, the protagonist of Urusei Yatsura. So both canons have the dog take on a completely different appearance. But also, because he's a dog, he just runs off, and I guess there's just a naked teenage boy running around that nobody cares about.
Okay, so it's Spring of Drowned Man powder, is that correct?
Yes, that example was Spring of Drowned Man powder, and Shampoo was promising to give it to Ranma. Now, the punchline at the very end is that she neglected to mention that the transformation is only temporary.
Alright, and the bird and cat one might be only temporary.
It could be. We don't know. In the hours it must have taken for Ranma to have his wacky hijinks and then go back home, they were apparently still terrorizing the city. That was the breaking news on the TV. Whereas it's unclear how long it took to wear off when Ranma used it, because they kind of... Well, what they do is Ranma and Genma pour the powder into the family pond, which honestly sounds like a terrible idea. That's just asking for someone else to fall in there and get cursed with a man form. But they're not transforming. So that seems to confirm the logic that if Ranma did fall into the actual Spring of Drowned Man, it would undo the girl curse. Because neither he nor Genma are transforming. But then it cuts away to Shampoo just sweeping at her family restaurant, and Cologne's like, by the way, did you tell them it's only temporary? And she's like, they'll figure it out. And then cut back to Girl Ranma and Panda Genma in the pond, both of them looking very upset, as we just hear someone in the background being like, guys, dinner's ready, are you gonna come in yet? So we don't know how much time passed, just that the two of them were so overjoyed they stayed in the pond, and then it wore off while they were still in the pond.
Now, was there a difference in amount or concentration of the powder, perhaps?
Who knows? But in the second instance, specifically Ranma points out, but the powder's only temporary, to which the salesman of that episode is like, oh, but that's the cheap stuff. I got the real powder right here. So the salesman is implying that there's like degrees of quality to the powder that affect how temporary or permanent the transformation is.
So the bird and the pterodactyl and the tiger ones are not temporary, says the salesman, because they are better quality.
Yes, according to the salesman, we do not confirm for ourselves, and there are other details that make me wonder if the salesman was being honest.
Wait, what? Dishonest salesman.
Because, see, the other gimmick is that, similar to the very end, they find out that the powder, the transformation is permanent, but the body of water only temporarily has the power. So by the time Ranma, Ryoga, and Moose jumped in, it had worn off. But going back to the previous example, that's how the other powder worked. Ranma and Genma jumped into the pond, and it prevented them from going back to their cursed states but then it wore off. They were still in the pond when it cut back to them, and the pond was no longer affecting them.
Okay, so what we got here is, assuming everyone's telling the truth here, the first powder, the low quality powder, has a limited time area of effect on the body of water, because the pond isn't like this forever, that puts on a temporary status condition of man. And these later powders also are limited time area of effects, but according to the salesman at least, it's a permanent as opposed to a temporary buff.
Yes, that seems to be at least what was pitched to Ranma and his friends. Now again, this is what the salesman said, and we don't confirm it ourselves. And the salesman neglected to mention that there is a time limit to when you can use the powder. So there's already at least one degree of dishonesty from him. Anyways, there is one other detail to the episode I do think is worth bringing up. So the whole plot of, like, the first half of that episode is Ranma and the others, they're too scared to use the powder. Cause they don't know which powder does which. And then eventually they do the joke where they're like, hey guys, why are we fighting? If we work together, everybody wins. It's the one time they seem to acknowledge that, like, they can all just bathe in the same pond. They don't need to fight for it. So they're like, yeah, of course, we can just work together. We can just be friends. Of course, yeah. And so the second half of the episode is all three of them getting increasingly paranoid that the other two are going to betray them, because this is Ranma, and of course they can't just trust each other.
Oh, I was hoping for beautiful friendship.
So by the end, they're fighting over the last barrel of water, now that they confirmed that that's got the Spring of Drowned Man powder in it. But they end up knocking it over, and it starts rolling down the hill, and the water's still in there, so they're like, after it. And they jump off a cliff to get to it. And so we get this moment. It's like the shot almost freeze frames as the water is spilling out of the barrel and splashing onto them. And then it cuts to them and the barrel landing in the river. And then just splashing uncontrollably. And then girl Ranma pops out with little pig Ryoga and duck moose. And I was under the assumption that, like, oh, maybe it didn't work because the Jusenkyo water mixed in with the river and it got diluted. And that's why it didn't work, because they landed in the river as it splashed.
Yeah, that was my thought.
Because it seemed to very clearly splash them. But instead, Ranma is like, oh, I can't believe it, that salesman lied to us. And then it cuts to them at Shampoo's place, and she's like, oh yeah, you only have like a few minutes to jump in. Did you not know that? And Ranma's upset, and then he goes home and turns on the TV, and we get the final joke of the news broadcast, and that's it. So I was slightly confused at that.
Alright, so they got the barrel. The barrel is full of water. They put the powder in the barrel. The water becomes Jusenkyo water, but only for a few minutes. So the entire time they're chasing the barrel, it's actually worthless? Is that right?
Who knows when it wore off? But it was apparently, they put the powder in all three barrels at the same time, so it lasted just long enough for the pterodactyl and the saber-toothed tiger to pop out. But those are the most basic, the transformations we see, the least of the ones we see. And if we're assuming that these are still prehistoric creatures in the Ranma universe, those would be the oldest of the springs. So I guess moving on from there, we can go chronologically. Looking here, the next chronological would be the 4,000-year-old Spring of Drowned Asura. Oh wait, hold on. That's connected to Pantyhose Taro again. Put a pin in that. We'll get back to those.
You don't think now's a good time to go to Pantyhose Taro?
No. Well, we got other stuff to cover. You know what? While we're focused on anime exclusive springs, I got another good one. I can tell you about the Spring of Drowned Monk.
The Spring of Drowned Monk. Alright, tell me about this drowned monk.
So, This one's interesting because it's from an episode that introduces us to the Jusenkyo Morals Committee.
The Jusenkyo Morals Committee? What?
Yeah. Now, I've said before that when Rumiko Takahashi is inconsistent, it's often just for the sake of making things convenient for her or to just make a joke. Whereas when the anime is inconsistent, it's just weird.
Alright.
The Jusenkyo Morals Committee is so weird and impossible to understand that even within the episode, Ranma is pointing out that these people are being hypocritical and their logic doesn't make any sense. They just seem to be a bunch of weirdos trying to superimpose rules onto everyone that has been affected by the Jusenkyo Springs.
Okay.
So, like, the start of the episode it's a fun premise that I would have liked to see explored if not for the weird inconsistencies. But basically, there's this group of people. They're wearing the same uniform as the guide,
Okay.
but he's not in their meeting. So I don't think they are an official collection. I think these are just weirdos who started their own thing and like to act like they're official.
Okay.
But they're basically having a meeting of like, listen, we need to crack down on the rules. More and more people are coming to Jusenkyo and drowning, and they're not following the rules. They're using their transformations for evil. And then we just get the montage of like all the times Ranma and all these characters have gotten into violent skirmishes or caused property damage as this guy narrates the top 5 offenders. Like, these new people are causing big problems. We need to do something about them. And this is where they send in Kani, otherwise known as the killer from Jusenkyo, which is the name of the episode.
The killer from Jusenkyo. Fascinating.
Kani is really huge and really buff, and he's got this big-ass sword. Now, recall the time when Ranma fought Ryoga for the first time, and they did that bit where, like, someone tried to pick up Ryoga's umbrella and they couldn't?
Right.
Because it was too heavy?
Yeah.
But then Ranma and Ryoga can swing it around super easy to show off how strong they are.
Yeah.
They did the opposite here, where at some point Kani drops his sword, and Ranma tries to pick it up, but it's too heavy for Ranma.
Oh, so it's like Thor's hammer.
Yeah, Kani can just swing it like it's nothing. Also, it's a magic sword. It's a wind sword. So he's creating all these gusts of wind. He is causing so much property damage, which again is why Ranma points out, like, what are you doing? Why are you coming after me? But I guess the logic here is that Kani is not transformed while causing this destruction. He is not bringing negative attention to the Jusenkyo Springs. Because his transformation is that of a monk. When Kani is splashed with water, he becomes very short, very scrawny. It's hard to tell if his age is affected since he becomes bald as well. He loses his hair. So it is a physical transformation. But the most noteworthy thing is that it doesn't just turn him into an old man or a scrawny bald man or whatever. It turns him into a monk. It affects his personality. So normally, Kani is very violent and strong, and he does not care about who gets in his way. He is causing all this property damage to get to Ranma and the others, because those are lawbreakers. The moral society has deemed them criminals.
Yeah.
They must be captured.
Okay.
But as soon as he gets turned into a monk, he immediately sees all the destruction that he caused and is like, oh no, what have I done? I must pray for these poor trees. I apologize to the nature around me. I have sinned. Like, he becomes non-violent.
Interesting.
This guy seems to have an entirely different personality when he's transformed. And they seem to share the same memories, because when he gets changed back into his normal form, he immediately grabs the sword and springs back into action. He's not confused about what's going on. He's immediately caught on. It's just that he has gotten rid of whatever non-violent tendencies were in his head telling him to not do that.
So that would suggest, first of all, that the state of being a monk is inherent to the transformation. Like,
Yeah.
the monk's spiritual values are so central that they are as central as physical characteristics almost. So that makes me wonder, did the girl have a personality that drowned?
Who knows?
Is there any personality in common between Ranma and anyone else who got dumped in the spring of drowned girl? There was someone else, right?
There is another example, but like both of those examples, they just seem like their usual male selves when they switch into female form. There doesn't seem to be a mental transformation for any of these other characters. They're exactly the same personality-wise, regardless of what form they're in.
So it could be that the girl just had no personality.
Maybe, but here's the other thing. Presumably, the monk that drowned was a man, but there's already a spring of drowned man. So I like to think that maybe the magic simply recognized, well, there can't be two of the same springs, so it has to take a different trait from the man that drowned here.
So maybe a man drowned and then later a monk drowned. So that could work.
I like to think that the springs take the path of least resistance. Things just sort of happen automatically. If something happened that would cause an inconsistency or confusion, like say 2 different men drowned at 2 different times, which traits get taken from those men are different. One of them, it took his maleness, his physical body, whereas another one, well, we already have a spring that has those traits, so the spring absorbs something different. It absorbs the mental state of this man rather than his physical ones. Although it still causes Kini to become smaller and weaker, so there is also a physical transformation. He becomes mentally but also physically unimposing.
So for example, let's say if a second cat spring was created, it couldn't be a second spring of drowned cat. It could become a spring of drowned tabby or drowned kitten or drowned spoiled cat. It would have to be something more specific, basically.
Yes, that's what I think is going on here.
All right.
Because also remember, all of these springs come from the same source water. So whatever magic is affecting them, it's one source. So it makes sense that they're all connected some way in this logic.
That makes sense to me because I've never met a cat that didn't have a personality. And so the spring of drowned cat would have to have a personality. And my other idea was maybe they sort of merge personalities because like we never met Ranma without the spring of drowned girl. Though in flashbacks he acts the same way. So maybe he's so like the girl that they merged into one personality, but that would go counter to everything we see. So I think we'd have to rule that out. So yeah, I think your theory is probably the strongest one. So if I like drowned a third man, maybe it would be like spring of drowned job or spring of drowned personality trait, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, we do have one of those examples. There is a spring of drowned pious man, or a spring of drowned good Samaritan, as it was translated. And that one is, as far as I can tell, the only other transformation that influences personality rather than physical traits. And, oh, wait, that's from another Pantyhose Taro.
Oh, so
Sorry.
now's a good time. Wait. So now's a good time to go to Pantyhose Taro, right?
Oh, no. Hold on. We still got a couple of things to go there, but put a pin in that. Don't worry. I won't forget. If we're talking about other examples of the spring taking on different traits, there's also a spring of drowned child, although I think it was... I don't speak Mandarin, but I think I read something that localized it as spring of drowned young boy. So this example, the spring of drowned child, its victim is someone who feels like they would be important to the lore, but they only appear once. And that's Rakyosai, Happosai's childhood friend. Because Happosai, his childhood nickname that we learned from Cologne was Happy, and Rakyosai was called Raki. Happy and Lucky. And they were good friends, except I think they were friends in the same sense that, like, Ranma and Ryoga are technically best friends. Because it seems like Happosai and Rakyosai had a falling out over something extremely petty.
Wait.
And Rakyosai came back for revenge.
Was it over a game of Go? Because then it would be happy-go-lucky.
Ah, missed opportunity there.
Right? Anyway,
We need to write a fan fiction of their childhoods where they were both got really big into Go and then they had to fight over it. But the big fight, it's not important. We're gonna cover some really important stories up ahead, as I keep hinting at with Pantyhose Taro. Some of those are big enough to warrant their own episodes, so I'm gonna try and stick to just the transformations and the springs. So if you're curious about the history of Hopplesai's childhood, I'm sorry I won't break that down, but I will break down a very important detail.
All right.
So Rakyosai purposely cursed himself. He picked that specific spring so that he could turn himself into a child and basically trick Hopplesai. Because the plot of that story is some random kid shows up wanting to be Hopplesai's apprentice. And then it's revealed it's actually Hopplesai's old friend, Rakyosai, who was trying to, basically plot to murder Hopplesai using this trick.
Oh, so they were, really, really enemies.
Yes, but then they, immediately make up, and then they team up against Ranma, so, they got over very quickly. So the other notable thing about Rakyosai is that he came out too young.
Oh, no.
We just see a single panel of him as, a toddler.
Oh, no.
As he explains that he had to wait a couple of years for his child form to be old enough to ask to be Hopplesai's apprentice.
Oh, no.
And that's why that's why the two haven't talked to each other in years.
That's good.
This does make it clear that his cursed form still aged normally. He's not going to be a child forever.
Wait, does that mean that Moose, his duck form, is going to die? Is that the implication?
Well, this is a universe where martial artists can live to be 200 years old. So it's possible that the martial arts energy
could help them surpass the physical limits, just like with the hands. Right.
Yes. A duck that trains in the martial arts could potentially live longer than a normal duck.
And so we know that Moose can also transcend the limits of the duck form because he can use tools. The person who's probably going to be most impacted by this is Shampoo, because she's the one who's least able to transcend her animal form. Oh my god.
I feel like Shampoo isn't really trying, but she has the potential. And I think that's what matters.
I feel like there's a really tragic story down the road where we've got to take an aging Shampoo to the vet because her cat form, really needs some expensive animal care.
I think that Shampoo's fighting energy would keep her cat form alive. It's just that she'll just start acting really old and be low on energy, and this might begin to affect her. She might become lazier, but she won't die of old age. That's what I'm thinking.
So, from, all right, so let's say she's 16 now, maybe from the age of, 36, roughly, to the end of her human lifespan, she will be functionally acting like an elder cat.
Yeah, at least while she's in cat form, and then when she changes back, but also it's Shampoo, so maybe she'll develop certain customs that she retains in human form because of just how she's gotten used to becoming an old cat.
Now, she might have some help from Cologne in this, because Cologne probably has a potion that, extends the life of a cat, or the vitality of a cat.
Yeah, that is also true. And who knows, maybe Shampoo would not be on board with becoming a lazy cat. Maybe she would start working out more. But yeah, it seems like these forms do age.
That suggests that what's going to happen is, when they're 35, Shampoo's going to start training, and she's going to turn into a really, really hot 37-year-old martial artist and reconnect with Ranma and be like, "Hey, Ranma." And Ranma, who's been married to Akane for 15 years and has finally realized Akane is not exactly all that, he's like, "Hey, Shampoo, hey, we used to date sorta in high school. Yeah, we can meet up for drinks. Yeah."
Yes, I'm picturing that exactly.
All right. And then Shampoo's going to be like, "No, Ranma, no like you no more. My girlfriend Ukyo and I are happily married." There. Fanfiction complete! Also, we have Moose as our stay-at-home sub.
But yeah, so that's Rakyosai. Again, I'm not going to get into his whole history with Happosai because the transformation is just a means to get close, and then once he's revealed to be an old man, he kind of just stays in old man form the whole time.
Now, I do have a question about Rakyosai. Is he as perverted as Happosai?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, he's basically Happosai's evil twin. They're basically the exact same person, which again explains why they hate each other, but also they are the best of friends. Rakyosai spent multiple years preparing for this plan to murder his best friend, and then within like the course of minutes, just they immediately forgive each other and switch to being creepy perverts against Ranma. So again, I'm not going to get into the specifics of the story itself since that's not related to the transformation, but it does basically result in there being two Happosais, as if they're twins, which is not unlike what could have happened if Happosai was affected by the Spring of Drowned Twins, which is a different plot that is also related to Pantyhose Taro. Okay, I'm sensing a pattern here.
Yeah, okay, so let's go to Pantyhose Taro now. Yeah?
Okay, but first, give me one more. Give me one more. I think I could get one more non-Pantyhose Taro thing out here. Surely he doesn't affect everything on this list.
All right. I mean, if you think so. I mean, he can't be everything. I mean, does he affect the Spring of Drowned Akane?
No. Haha.
All right.
Haha, he has nothing to do with Akane. Although he does kidnap her, but has nothing to do with the springs.
All right.
Anyways, let's talk about the Spring of Drowned Frog.
All right. Sure. Let's jump to it. I'm in rare form today.
The Spring of Drowned Frog is interesting because there's basically two versions of it. One from the manga and one from the anime. And I can't confirm this, but I would not be surprised if the version in the manga exists specifically because Rumiko Takahashi saw the episode with the frog hermit and went, that's not how that works. Cause boy does that episode just not care at all about the consistency and rules established within the series.
All right, so it's possible the frog hermit is non-canonical.
Yep. So the frog hermit, he doesn't even have an original backstory.
Okay.
His backstory is that, hey, remember the day that Ranma and Genma went to Jusenkyo?
Yeah.
And they got cursed? And also they accidentally cursed Ryoga without realizing it? Well, it turns out there was a fourth guy there that day, and they also accidentally knocked him in, and now he wants revenge for the exact same reasons.
That sounds like Ryoga.
Yeah. It's just the exact same thing. They didn't even give him his own original motivation.
Now, here's my question. Does he love Akane and want to become her pet?
No. He just wants revenge. That's it.
His form looks weird. First of all, his frog size is larger than the average frog. It can talk, which is unusual.
Yes.
And I'm also seeing that people are saying that it's surprising that the frog drowned. Now, that goes back to our earlier discourse about what is the drowning. And I think this is a very strong argument that the drowning is literally just immersion. It doesn't have to involve death.
Yeah, but also, like, frogs need to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, frogs can still drown. It's not easy, because they're amphibious creatures, but there could be ways to drown a frog.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like that suggests that the drowning part of the story, really, we're using the word drowned, but drowning is the wrong word, because it's really much more about immersion and possibly loss of consciousness. So that's going to be important, I think, as we study this in greater detail.
Yes, there are future examples that get into that. But regarding this frog, as you pointed out, he can talk. He does not change size. Now, he's an old man, so he's already, like, short. He's Happosai sized. But he does not get smaller. That's still really big for a frog. That is still person sized. And he can still talk and stand on two legs. In fact, aside from his appearance, he doesn't seem to become frog-like at all. He's just the same person. He just now looks like a frog, which raises the question of why is he so upset in the first place? Like, he didn't seem to have been negatively impacted in any way. In fact, this helped him because now he's, well, Well, in the episode, he like trains frogs. He can he can train frogs to do his bidding, and he even does little like road shows where like he's a street performer and he makes the frogs dance. And unfortunately, they do not make a Michigan J Frog reference, but they're still dancing frogs.
Did he have these powers before he became a frogman?
We don't know, but I feel like there are two options here. Either he was already frog themed and training frogs, and then he just happened to fall in the frog pond, in which case sounds like he already liked frogs to begin with and was already working with them. It's not like this is a huge inconvenience. Or he decided to do that after becoming a frog, in which case the transformation motivated him to start a new career, which seems to be going well for him. So again, I don't know why he's so upset.
This suggests something to me, something very important about Ranma 1/2's, like, global universal rules. Are you ready?
Sure.
We know, because of Jusenkyo water is drawn to him at a ridiculous rate. Like, the average person walking down the street will not get splashed with Ranma, or will not get splashed with water as much as Ranma. We know that there is a sense of irony at play. For example, Shampoo, in love with Ranma, defeated, figuring out her feelings, goes to the springs to train, doesn't know all of the details of Ranma, falls into the spring of the creature that he fears and gets driven mad by the most, the spring of drowned cat, in a very ironic twist.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is, in this world, is the destiny of mankind controlled by some transcendental entity or law? Is it like the hand of God hovering above? At least it is true that man has no control even over his own will. That's right, I'm talking about fate, as in like the fate from the show Berserk. Only this fate, instead of being like some sort of hand of God that wants to like do freaky stuff to like horses or whatever that show's about, it's trying to create hilarious irony.
Yes.
So it's almost like a evil, ironic, godlike entity that either is Jusenkyo specifically, because, you know, the water thing and the shampoo thing are both ironic, but they're also Jusenkyo centered. So this guy grows up. He's a frog trainer. He's a professional frog trainer. He's the frog hermit. He has mastered the art of frogs. And then he wanders in there. He gets kicked. He falls. What does he fall into? Oh no, now I'm a giant frog. It's the hand of destiny and fate.
Absolutely. If we're going under the logic that the springs can recognize that existing traits exist and draw different ones, and they take the path of least resistance, you could argue potentially that it's almost as if the magic is sentient in some way. It could tell what would be funniest.
Now I'm dropping an image into the chat. I just want you to take a look at this. It's a very prominent Berserk image.
Yes. Yeah, I'm picturing that, but like it's got, instead of whatever it's holding in its hand, it's holding like a clown nose that it's about to honk.
Yes, exactly. I think we have uncovered through our scholarship a lot of the secret, true behind the scenes workings of this frankly hellish universe of Ranma 1/2.
It's a cruel world.
Yeah, this is not a comedy. This is a horror anime. That's, I think, what we're finding.
So, regardless of how this frog hermit's transformation works, whatever results in him being a human-sized, talking frog that just doesn't seem to follow any of the rules, like I said, it almost feels targeted that the manga did feature a Spring of Drowned Frog for like a single panel.
It says here several of Masala's crows. I don't even know who that is.
So there is an arc. Masala was one of the minions of a major antagonist. That's why he doesn't even get his own page on this wiki. But he's just some guy that can control crows. And the arc took place in China. So they go to Jusenkyo, and at one point they're fighting in Jusenkyo, and he's commanding the crows to attack someone. And at one point the crows miss and fall into a spring, and then like 20 frogs jump out, implying that that was the spring of drowned frog. And they are not giant frogs. They are not bird size. They're just normal frogs. They're just innocent frogs.
Just normal frogs. You know, that sounds like Rumiko Takahashi was like, no, he would not be a man-sized frog. What the heck? That's what I'm getting from that.
Yes. That's the funniest outcome, is the one that actively contradicts the anime canon.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the Spring of Drowned Frog. It's just all over the place. And again, people think it's weird that a frog can drown. I don't think that's weird, especially when we have something like the Spring of Drowned Octopus.
I think it just proves that while we use the word drown, it's a shortcut because English language has a lot of like words that mean multiple things. And that's just important to keep in mind if you ever want to build your own Jusenkyo. You can do it without harming someone.
Yeah.
So does that mean, are we ready to talk about the spring of make your own waifu?
Not yet.
Okay.
But we will get to that.
Because Pantyhose Taro is my waifu.
Okay, that waifu. Okay. Well, you know what? Sure. I did mention the Spring of Drowned Octopus. I'm going to put a pin in that as well, because that's also relevant to Pantyhose Taro. But not right away, because first we need to talk about his initial transformation.
All right. And that's the Spring of Drowned Bishonen.
No. That's his default form.
Okay.
He's a pretty handsome boy.
All right.
That's what he wanted to change his name. He wanted to change people to call him Handsome Taro or Handsome Boy Taro.
Oh.
That didn't stick, but anyways, Pantyhose Taro. Again, this could fill up its entire episode. I'm going to try and only talk about the transformations, but from this point on, we're getting to more significant characters that are like have multiple arcs or are major antagonists that connect to the history of Jusenkyo. So it's going to be harder to leave out details.
Now this is the Spring of Drowned.
It's the Spring of Drowned Yeti riding a bull while carrying a crane and eel.
Spring of Drowned Yeti riding a bull while carrying crane and eel. So obviously, if we dissect the grammar of this, only one of these things needs to drown. That's the Yeti. The Yeti was riding a bull.
Yeah.
The bull was carrying a crane and eel while it drowned, or the Yeti was carrying a crane and eel while riding a bull. Do we know anything about the formation of this spring, or is it just haha funny name?
It's just haha funny name, because that's how it's presented.
All right.
Because this is technically a spoiler, as well as the fact that his name is Pantyhose Taro. I am spoiling the entire first arc he is in, because for most of that arc, he is a complete mystery. And we don't know what he is, or what his motivations are, or what his name is. That just presents, there is this bad guy showing up, causing problems. He is attacking various people. He's attacking the Jusenkyo 5, and they eventually learn it's because he's looking for Happosai.
Now, I have here it was 2,500 years ago, which places it in 513 BC. Might be 512 BC. So that's important. And that's Taro. P-hose. All right. Now, for our focus today, how did he get cursed? That seems like maybe where we should start.
Well, for context, let's talk about like his cursed form just in general. Because, like, when he shows up, he's fighting various people, and, like, Ranma is finding out who is this mystery man attacking everyone, and at one point, Ryoga, who lost off-screen, is like, be careful, Ranma, that man is a demon. Which Ranma assumes to mean, wow, this guy must be tough. But Ryoga meant, no, I mean, he literally turns into a giant furry monster with wings and claws, and he just looks weird. He looks like a demon. He is a demon man.
So he's a demon man, or perhaps a D-man.
Yeah. But, yeah, then eventually we find out that it's not a demon, it's a Jusenkyo transformation, just a really weird one. One that turns him into this weird chimera monster. Because as you pointed out, only one of those four things needed to drown, but all four of them presumably drowned together. The Yeti was riding the bull and also carrying the crane and eel, one in each hand. The four of them fell in the spring at the same time. So the spring took traits of all four of them.
This almost feels like what happens with like one of those like AI image creators, where like it assembles the information, but it doesn't quite understand what it took, which is so it like connects them in weird ways. Or like, you know, like when in a sci-fi show where a super alien tries to put someone back together and gives them two heads.
It's an amalgamation of traits that aren't really representative of any of these four animals. They just all got mixed together into one unique creature. He became this chimera demon thing that does not exist. But those are the traits that the spring took.
That seems to fit with some of the other ways the spring works, where it's like, it's looking for the dominant traits, and sometimes it's just like girl, but then if it already has girl, it's like, all right, what am I going to take from you? So like that's how we ended up with monk instead of man. And it's going to take some stuff, and it's kind of random, because it doesn't fully understand those things. It's almost like it's a non-sentient... I don't want to call it an AI because it obviously predates computers, but it's like one of those like prototypical, barely human godlike creatures or spirit entities. It's almost like a fey creature that doesn't understand what humans are.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. Well, with how we've read things so far, so I do think that's how this happened.
Okay.
But anyways, I said the second spoiler was Pantyhose's name, or sorry, yes. Pantyhose Taro. I think it's meant to just be Pantyhose Taro, like one name. But yeah, the thing we eventually find out is the reason he's attacking people and wants to kill well, he doesn't want to kill Hopplesai, he wants to capture Hopplesai. Because we eventually learn how he got transformed. So, apparently, years ago, Hopplesai was at Jusenkyo. And the rule of funny did not result in him falling in a spring. Instead, it resulted in him running across a woman going into labor.
Oh my.
And so Hopplesai helps deliver the baby. I don't know how he learned the skills to do so, but he did it, and she gave birth to a healthy baby boy.
Here's my theory. He was reading books about childbirth because he wanted to look at the pictures because, hey, at least it had women not wearing clothes, and he happened to absorb the information.
Yeah, true. Maybe he just got the wrong book and didn't realize that it was a medical textbook until like halfway through. But anyways, Hopplesai helped deliver this healthy baby boy. And so, of course, the first thing he does is, well, we need to wash the baby. It's got all the icky goo and placenta all over it. So he uses a ladle. Because we need to explain why Hopplesai didn't transform. Yeah. But he uses a ladle to pour water all over the baby to wash him and clean the baby and, burp him, make sure the baby's fine. And then we just see the Jusenkyo guy being like, yeah, no, not that one. That's the water from the spring of drowned Yeti riding a bull while carrying a crated eel in each hand.
And someone just happened to have like a bucket of that water laying around for whatever reason?
No. They were at Jusenkyo.
Oh, okay.
This pregnant woman was just going for a walk at Jusenkyo, and now she's going into labor. And the guide is there like, we need a doctor, and Hopplesai shows up to help. And they're right next to the springs while this is happening.
And Hopplesai helps because, as we know, if you don't have an available professional, you turn to a martial artist. If you don't have cops, you turn to a martial artist.
Yeah.
You don't have Ghostbusters? Martial artist. You don't have doctors? I mean, that's how Dr. Tofu manages his practice. And also, as we all know, the Jusenkyo tribe custom, and I think everyone knows this, the Jusenkyo tribe custom is whoever gives a baby a first bath names the baby.
That wasn't the Jusenkyo custom. That was the custom of whatever village this woman came from.
I thought he was Jusenkyo tribe born, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, it was this woman who was like, this man is now the godfather. Because he helped deliver the baby. Who knows? Either she or the baby might not have survived if not for him. So she makes him the godfather, meaning he gets first dibs on naming the baby.
All right, so Hopplesai gets to name the baby, and he names the baby Boobs, correct?
He names the baby Pantyhose Taro because he's like, I'm gonna name this boy after the most beautiful thing I could think of, pantyhose. And that becomes Pantyhose Taro's main motivation throughout the series, is, according to village customs, only the person that named you can change your name. He can't get his name legally changed without Hopplesai's approval. So he's here to kidnap the man, and in the end that doesn't work. Again, we're not going to go into the whole story there, but they eventually defeat him, he leaves, but he eventually comes back for more, and is still motivated by his desire to stop Hopplesai. And he's got a plan. Pantyhose Taro went to Jusenkyo and came back with a jar filled with water from the spring of drowned Good Samaritan, or spring of drowned Pious Man, as it was listed here.
Okay.
And everyone's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, go ahead, splash him, we don't care. Whatever this thing is gonna do, that sounds like an improvement. So that's the plan. Now, we never get to actually see this spring or learn anything about it, because we eventually find out he got the wrong water. So all we know about it is its name.
We also know apparently that it was 1,000 years ago, which puts it in 987 AD. Which doesn't matter, but I'm still keeping track, darn it.
Yes. But presumably, this would be a mental transformation similar to the drowned monk thing.
Yes.
This turns you into a pious man. You are a good Samaritan. All it does is turn you into a good, kind-hearted person.
The term is, the plan is to make Happy be a nice guy. So Happy will change the name.
Yes.
All right.
And then, unfortunately, after they give Pantyhose Taro their blessing and he goes off, they're like, yeah, do whatever you want. They then get a call from Jusenkyo, and the guide has called them to let them know that they have the wrong water.
Oh, no.
He actually got water from the spring of drowned twins.
Oh, no. That's... Ooh. Spring of... So that would make... That could make a bunch of different... What would that make?
That is a good question.
Based on what we know, if with the Spring of Drowned Girl, generally it seems it's going to turn you into a girl version of yourself. So I'm thinking it would turn you into a twin version of yourself. So you would be turned into you and your twin, who is like you but not the same.
Yeah, I think what it would do is it would make a clone, and if either of you two touch hot water, the clone would disappear. But I think it would be funnier if just whichever one gets hit with hot water, that one disappears and the other one gets to become the main one, because they're basically the same person. They're twins. And I just think that's how Rumiko Takahashi would have written it.
Oh my gosh. So could it create multiple, like, okay. All right, let's say I'm person A, I'm cursed, right? I get splashed with the cold water, so I grow a twin. All right? Either I or my twin gets splashed with hot water, we disappear. And the other me is now the real me. Right?
That's how I'm thinking it works.
Now, if I got splashed with cold water, I've got a twin. If I get splashed again, it's not Spring of Drowned Triplet.
Correct. You are already in your cursed state.
Yeah.
When girl Ranma gets wet, she doesn't become more feminine. She's already in the cursed form. Well, anyways, this wiki shows some examples. And the wiki lists a duck and a crow. I don't remember any ducks for even a single panel, but there was one spot where Pantyhose Taro tosses the water, and then a bird, I guess a crow, flies in and at the exact moment and gets hit by the water, and now it's two crows flying off. And then similar to the pterodactyl, it just flies off and we forget about the crow, so we don't really get any more specifics, but it does become two crows.
What's this thing with the bump on Hapasai's head? That seems weird.
So, at the very end, it looks like Ranma has lost, and Pantyhose Taro has successfully tossed the water onto Hopplesai, but the joke is that during the fight, so much water has spilled out that it's only like a single drop that lands on Hopplesai's head, which has a little cartoon bump on it, and so the bump then turns into two bumps. It doesn't turn his entire body into twins. It just doubles the part of his body it landed on.
Well, I feel like that's consistent. So first of all, this is something the Jusenkyo intelligence, which is what I'm going to call it, has to make a decision every time it has to interpret itself every time someone is cursed, every time someone drowns in a Jusenkyo pool. So I'm going to create an idea of the Jusenkyo intelligence. So it looks at that situation and it says, okay, what happens? Is that enough? And then it consults the Great Will, fate, if you will. And it's like, no, man, I don't think it would be funny if there's 2 hapasides just from that. So the Jusenkyo intelligence is like, all right, well, we're just going to clone the bump on his head. I think that's entirely consistent.
Now, I have noticed there are some examples where Ranma is like standing on like a puddle or something, and that's not enough to make him transform. And if you recall, the thing that I thought was happening, but apparently wasn't the case, when they had the barrel of water that they fell in the river with, that didn't work. I assume that's because the water got diluted. I've been under the impression that the amount of water matters. You have to fully submerged in the water to become cursed.
Could be.
And that's why it only doubles the bump rather than Happosai as a whole. But the fact that a part of his body was doubled, and it was a temporary body part because it was just the bump, but now there's 2 bumps, but eventually both of those bumps will heal and disappear. But what if, like, he had enough water to, like, splash his arm? Would he have 2 arms and that's the only part of his body that splits in 2? Can you have partial transformations if you only stand waist deep?
I feel like what we've seen so far, no, because you would have to be immersed in the water. You don't have to drown to acquire the curse, but you do have to be fully immersed. And so what this basically means is a bump is a distinct entity, all right? So your arm is part of you, but like a wart or a corn is its own distinct entity. That's what I'm theorizing based on this.
That seems to be it. Also, I'm pretty sure if someone tried to, like, do a partial transformation, it wouldn't work. Except it does, because that's what Pantyhose Taro does.
No, we've established that that's impossible multiple different ways.
But it doesn't matter. Pantyhose Taro gets a second transformation, and it doesn't cancel the first one.
This is in the anime, so it's non-canon, right?
No, this is in the manga. So it is within the same canon as the previous example with the powder that specifically implies that the transformations don't stack, but here it does stack.
All right, so how does he how much do we know about how he acquire? What is this transformation that he gets?
So we don't see how he got it, but when Pantyhose Taro was back and they're trying to stop him, and it's like, well, we fought him before. How bad could it be? Except it turns out he got an upgrade. This isn't even his final form. Pantyhose Taro went back to Jusenkyo to get the Spring of Drowned Good Samaritan, but while he was there, he jumped in a second spring.
Okay.
On purpose. Because it turns out he likes being a monster. That's not the part he hates. It's just the name. That was the big punchline at the end of the first one. Because they all assume that that's why he wanted revenge, and he's like, no, I like being a monster. I can fly. I'm, like, huge. That's cool. He likes being a monster, and he decides to add more animal traits to his chimera form by jumping in the Spring of Drowned Octopus, thus giving himself tentacles on his back.
Now that Spring of Drowned Octopus formed in 387 AD. Just noting that.
Yes, that one.
So, alright, so how do we square this?
Also of note, at one point in the fight, Pantyhose Taro reveals that he can shoot ink, which I think there are some species of octopus that can shoot ink. It's not just squids. But more importantly, he shoots ink from his fingers. His normal, non-octopus fingers. So, like, he is just becoming a whole mess of weird traits.
Now, are those Yeti hands at that point?
It seems like it, yes.
Okay. Alright, so here's what I got for you. Okay. So, I previously mentioned the Jusenkyo intelligence, which is interpreting the will of fate, and is also managing the magic of the springs, right?
Yes.
Are you on board with that conception as a construct for how the magic works? It has to apply...
That's the only explanation I can think of.
So, normally, by all of the rules laid out, the Jusenkyo intelligence would be like, alright, you're an octopus now. But, what does fate find amusing? The god watching the Ranma universe, or the Ranmaverse, as I will call it, likes to torture everybody. But who does it like to torture the most?
It's obviously funniest when Ranma suffers.
So if Taro turned into an octopus and came back for vengeance and was just like an ultra buff octopus, no. The Will of Fate is like, that's not good enough. You know what would be better? Is if this works. So even though Pantyhose Taro, with all of the knowledge that he has, should just be turning into an octopus, or maybe he doesn't even know. Maybe he's kind of dumb. I don't know. So he goes in. The Will of Fate is like, I decree that the giant monster Ranma has to fight must be even more horrible. And Jusenkyo intelligence is like, this is my day job? Okay, whatever.
See, I think you're interpreting too much sentience with this thing. This is why I said I think the springs take the path of least resistance. And we'll find more evidence of this in a bit, but here's... I lied. I said I can't think of another explanation. I think I can. So, if a man fell in the spring of drowned octopus, he would turn into an octopus.
Right.
You're not an octopus.
Right.
So you become octopus now. Pantyhose Taro is not a man.
He is a Yeti riding a bull.
He's some kind of weird amalgamation of multiple animals. So the spring is able to recognize, well, you already are a mix of animals. What's one more on top of that? So it doesn't cancel out the existence because Pantyhose Taro is a collection of animal traits
That makes
already.
sense.
It's just adding new ones on top of that.
Now, the other question is, did he go in as a human or did he go in as a creature?
I don't think it matters because it will, regardless of what form you're in, that it will give you that form, that cursed form. If like you're in the water, you are wet, you will turn into what your cursed form is. So even if he was human when he fell in, he would still turn into his chimera form.
Okay.
But also his octopus form.
So, like, if Ranma went to the Spring of Drowned Man and jumped in, as a man, he would turn into a girl and then turn into a man. Basically. He would lose his cursed form. Because he's not a mix.
Yeah.
Whereas if, like, the Spring of Drowned couple in love jumped into the Spring of Drowned Duck, they might turn into a Spring of Drowned Ducks in Love because they don't cancel out.
Yeah, the duck form wouldn't undo being in love or something like that.
I was proposing the idea of an intelligence, but it seems like you think it's more of a logic. It's not even intelligence, it's just a thing that's just kind of doing stuff almost reactively.
Yeah, I don't think it's intelligent, I think, but it does feel alive. It does feel like there's some kind of logic there, but again, earlier you compared it to like a bad AI.
Yeah.
I think it's closer to that. It's not something intelligent, it's just, well, what is the path of least resistance? Nature will take its course, whatever that may be.
Maybe we should call it the Jusenkyo entity.
We might have more theories once we get into the source water.
I'm still with this Will of Fate thing, though, if that's cool with you. If that's still...
Yeah. I think just the Ranma universe in general operates under that and not the springs themselves. So that could still be a thing.
All right. So he comes back. So he's jumped in. He's got these octopus tendrils. And there's obviously more to that story. But I am going to propose perhaps we move on unless that we've got what we need to know about Octo Terror.
Yeah, that's all you need to know as far as the transformations are concerned. The rest of that story doesn't matter. But he does come back a third time. And again, the story isn't what's important, but what matters is when he comes back, Pantyhose Taro has made a new arch nemesis. That being Rouge.
Now, if I remember, is Rouge is a Jusenkyo tribe girl, right?
I don't think we're given any information about her background. Just that at some point, she fell into the spring of drowned Asura. Asura being a demigod being that exists in Buddhist and Hindu mythology. Now, as a Japanese woman, Rumiko Takahashi is more familiar with Buddhism than with Hinduism. Yeah. So its traits more consistent with that version. Although in the story, they refer to it as like an Indian demigod.
So I'm just going to mention, let me look at the timeline here. Year 2013 BC. Because that's when the drowning would have occurred. because it's 4,000 years ago, and it was 1987. So, all right. So, in terms of the human history timeline, here we go. Around this time, this is between the construction of Stonehenge and the beginning of the beginning of the rule of King Hammurabi and the start of the Shang dynasty in China. So, that's a long time ago.
Yes. That is the oldest spring that had a number given to it.
There are still woolly mammoths at this point.
This could unironically be older than the saber-tooth tiger one.
Wow. Okay, we're right around the time when the Epic of Gilgamesh is written down.
Oh boy.
That's how old this spring is.
These springs have been around for a long time.
Yeah, it just feels relevant because otherwise the timeline is unimportant. And that obviously can't be true. Okay, so Rouge is in the spring of drowned Asura.
Yeah. So we're not giving any information because by the time Pantyhose Taro meets her, she's already cursed.
Okay.
The backstory is he basically tries to rob her for humorous reasons I will not get into, because again, this is his whole history is worth its own episode. But basically, he pissed off this one woman, and then it turns out, well, she's been cursed, and when she gets hit with water, she turns into an Asura, which is a demigod being with 3 heads and 6 arms, and she has godlike powers. She can shoot fire and lightning and emit radiant light, and she can fly. She is basically the strongest character they meet up to that point.
She has something called the Asura Flash, which is a blinding bright light. She throws comet blasts, it says here. She can fly from China to Japan in the space of a sunny afternoon.
Yeah. Again, demigod. That's the word they use.
This seems to be another one that impacts the personality. It says here that it's very aggressive.
Yeah, I did misspeak. I forgot about this one. This one also does impact her because the joke is that at the start of the arc, she's being attacked by Pantyhose Taro, and they're like, hey, it's that jerk again. What's he doing now? We better protect this woman. And she's this very kind, sweet young lady. She thanks them for everything they've done. Then they offer to let her take a bath. And then she does, but then while she's washing herself, she becomes this demigod that's just full of wrath and anger and now wants revenge on Pantyhose Taro because the two of them have been in this ongoing feud for who knows how long.
Now, does she want revenge in her normal form?
She doesn't appear to care.
It says here that she might be violently vengeful when upset, disregards damage she caused, doesn't act consistent with any regret, thinking it's a sign of bad luck.
I think in human form, she's just like, well, this guy's really mean to me, but it's not worth, destroying an entire town over. But of course, once she transforms, well, screw that. I'm gonna blow up this whole house. You guys can't stop me. Also interesting, in her human form, she doesn't seem to find it noteworthy to warn anyone. You know, she's gonna take a bath. She doesn't think to tell them, by the way, I'm gonna, bathe and wash myself first before going in the hot springs. I might turn into a demigod that might destroy your house. Just a heads up. She doesn't warn anybody. So, even if she's not actively pursuing revenge in her normal state, she doesn't seem to consider it a problem if she were to do so. It's just business as usual.
Okay.
So it's possible that even in her normal form, she does not care. She's just got a slightly more semblance of politeness of, well, these people were nice to me, I'm not going to destroy their house. And then she loses all inhibitions and destroys everything, which is what most of the arc is about, so I won't go into that. But yeah, very powerful ability. She is one of the last major villains to be introduced, because the power creep has really started to sink in once we're fighting demigods.
Yeah.
But that is all the transformations connected to Pantyhose Taro. We did it! We still got several examples.
Oh my.
So, I basically split the springs into 3 categories. We've got the Jusenkyo 5. These are main characters. We have a million examples. And then we have the one-off characters, which includes Pantyhose Taro and the various springs he's associated with, because those don't give us a lot of examples.
Yeah.
And then we have the third category, which is what I'm going to call group transformations, which are basically like entire tribes or cultures surrounding the springs or a specific transformation in some way. Because there's multiple of those.
Really? As far as I knew, there's only one more to cover, so this is a surprise to me.
Oh
wow.
no, we still got a lot. It's just that a lot of those examples go over transformations we've already seen, like the Spring of Drowned Man or Girl, for example.
Okay. Uh-oh.
But multiple examples of the same transformation is important data we should look over.
Okay. All right. Let's do it.
So, first one I want to talk about is the one character I couldn't fit in any of the other categories, but I'm going to put him here because he's from a video game, and there is one video game example of the thing I do want to talk about. There is a polar bear named Sampakte in one of the visual novels, Ranma, the Captive Bride.
Wait, but that's not on the wiki.
Right, because I don't know if he's a transformation. It's just that the villain is a polar bear, but he's wearing like warlord armor, and like he talks, but his dialogue is in parentheses. And at one point they make a joke where he's talking with Genma in panda form, and they're just kind of growling at each other. I don't know if this man is someone who's fell into a spring of drowned polar bear, or if he's just a sapient polar bear that just happens to understand human language and want a human bride.
Now, what's the name again? Sampakte?
Sampakte.
He's not on the wiki. Okay. Is this a visual novel?
Yes.
Oh! Hey, there he is.
Yeah, if you scroll down, like, he's just a polar bear, but he's wearing human clothes. He has human minions. He seems to communicate like a human. I don't know if the others can understand him, because the only one to actually talk back to him is Genma, since they're both bears.
There's a really cute image here of, like, Shampoo skiing and carrying male Ranma and kissing him.
Yeah, that's a cute bit.
Wow.
I love the art for this game. This is another one of those of, like, this will require its own episode, because I love this game. This is one of my favorite.
Right.
It's just a very fun visual novel.
Interesting.
But tangents aside, I don't know if this man is a transformation, because he's just a polar bear. Now, this game does not have an English translation. I had to translate it myself using the Google auto-translate on my phone. I was able to figure out enough to understand the plot, but there could have been smaller details I didn't notice. I don't know. But this guy, he's just a polar bear the whole time. And as far as I'm aware, there's no explanation for why is there a polar bear. Why does the polar bear want a human bride? He's acting like a human, but he's a polar bear.
His behavior is consistent with any other martial artist in animal form with the skills to surpass their own body.
Yeah, and again, like, he kind of befriends Genma. Of course, it's Genma. Genma doesn't actually trust him, and they get in an argument while in bear forms. But he's like, hey, this guy's a bear too. Why don't you come work with me?
So this guy could literally be anything, because he could be a human, he could be an animal that wants a human bride and has mastered martial arts to the point of being able to achieve escape from animal limitations of an animal body. Or it could be a Jusenkyo cursed person turned into a polar bear who just isn't changing back for whatever reason.
Yeah, who knows? Worth noting, in the game, he does have access to a special liquid, like a flower, that if you collect the liquid, it will keep you transformed in one state or something, which he threatens to use on Ranma.
So he maybe...
I assume if I ever learned Japanese, the scene where he explains that is the one I would want to read first, because that might give us information.
This game might be worth giving a playthrough sometime. Interesting.
So yeah, I don't even know if this guy is a transformation, because I don't speak the language of the game, and there's not enough English information on it. In fact, this wiki page, I remember when I looked, it has some errors in it that I was able to figure out with my own self-translation. So, who knows who wrote these?
Interesting. All right. I'm puzzled by this guy. Maybe we should move on to the next example?
Yeah. I only brought him up just to point out that this could be an example. I don't know, but mainly I wanted to talk about him to segue into a different video game exclusive character.
All right.
So there is a different Ranma visual novel, White Orchid Serenade.
White Orchid's Serenade.
And the antagonist of that game is a girl named Arisa Nanjo.
Okay, so what do we need to know about Arisa?
So the general plot of that game is Ranma and friends have been lured into a facility that's the Jusenkyo Research Institute, which is run and funded by Arisa Nanjo, this young girl, this very wealthy rich girl.
Yeah.
And over the course of the game, we learn more about her. Ranma is basically going through like a Resident Evil adventure, just exploring this weird facility and learning more information and occasionally finding researchers and various experiments that he has boss fights against. Because in this game, we have mutants.
What?
Throughout the game, Ranma will just fight weird, like, chimera mutant creatures. Again, like it's a Resident Evil game, like, oh, you found the garden, there's a giant purple blob creature that he must fight. And then later, at some point, like, one of the main, the right-hand man to Arisa, some kind of, like, man turtle thing, who's got some sort of, like, water jetpack thing that can shoot hot and cold water. They're just mutants.
Huh.
So over the course of the game, we find out Arisa has a Jusenkyo curse.
All right.
And that's why she founded the Jusenkyo Research Institute, to try and find a cure for the curse. And that's how these mutants came into existence.
Oh my god.
I don't think we're given any more specifics beyond that, but, like, science attempting to figure out this magic curse somehow resulted in weird mutant monsters.
Now here's my question. Are these weird mutant monsters entertaining?
Well, the first one is just a blob.
Okay.
The second one, though, the man turtle, he's some kind of mutant turtle. Not a ninja, unfortunately. But like I said, they give him this little, like, water pack that shoots water, and he's able to follow instructions. Like, it's like they just stick some random minion on them, but the minion just happens to be this weird turtle monster creature that doesn't talk, but he's clearly following instructions and is able to use human weaponry. So like, to me, that raises the most questions of, like, they don't seem to, no one here seems to be afraid of the mutants. They don't seem to be like, oh god, what is this monstrosity we created? It's just like, oh, we made a man turtle thing? Well, give him a jetpack, you know? Give him a water gun or something. Make him useful so he has something to do. For all we know, somewhere in this facility, there's like a Bebop and Rocksteady just chilling in a lounge somewhere, waiting to get a job or something. They just have mutants here.
See, if it's funny, or if they're amusing, that would make sense because of the Will of Fate, but otherwise, this might sound like possibly the designer of the game just kind of making stuff up because they didn't know what to do for enemies.
Yeah, they just kind of come and go. They sort of gloss over the mutants very quickly because they're not relevant to the plot. It's just here so that we can put some gameplay and have Ranma do a boss fight in between your little, like, adventure game visual novel segments.
Interesting.
So yeah, totally, it's not fully there. That's why I think this game is more in line with, like, like an anime movie rather than with the regular series. It's not as funny.
Yeah.
It takes itself more seriously, but like the notion of like an artificial man-made curse or something that tried to interfere with the curse, resulting in a unique mutated transformation, I think that's interesting. That's even possible.
That's so weird.
But yeah, the mutants are kind of glossed over, but also we got Arisa Nanjo herself.
And she's a mutant.
No, she's just got a normal curse.
All right.
And that curse is why she founded the Research Institute, to try and make a cure. And I guess it didn't work, because by the start of the game, she has a new goal, which is to find someone who will fall in love with her, because she has accepted that she is a freak. She's some kind of transforming freak that no man would ever love her, and the only person who can relate to her is another person cursed by the Jusenkyo Springs, which is why all the characters are lured there, so that she could basically pick out which one she thinks is hottest and marry that guy. So she immediately falls in love with Ranma and tries to marry him. But yeah, the fact that she's trying to find love with another cursed individual implies that maybe the attempt to find a cure hasn't been successful.
Yeah. And instead, she's just had mutants. That's a big problem.
Yeah, those mutants, again, no one seems afraid of the mutants or concerned about them. Like, they're giving them jobs in the facility.
It's just not the goal.
That man turtle is basically a bouncer. And that blob was just kind of chilling in the garden. It wasn't even hurting anyone. Rama's just like, monster, and then fights it. But, like, who knows? That blob was maybe on, like, his smoke break or something.
Huh. Okay.
So there doesn't seem to be any animosity towards these mutants being created, but they're clearly not a cure, which is what she wanted. So this leads to the finale, and at the end, we get the big talk, and they convince her that, like, no, there are people who love you and care for you, and they're not going to think you're a monster. You just have to believe and trust people. And then she transforms and turns into a cat. And so, of course, Ranma freaks out.
Oh no!
But at least they immediately turn her back, and then she falls in love with her butler guy, and all's well that ends well. But more notably, we get some extra information about her cat form. Now, I apologize, I have not been keeping track of the clothing rules with all these characters.
What we basically had is most of them, on average, their clothes remain based on the original size. So, for example, Ryoga's bandana and Shampoo's bells, and there's another thing that...
Moose's glasses.
Moose's hidden weapons. Shampoo has another thing, the little things on, like, the bottom of her hair, like her braids.
Yeah, so, like, head accessories seem to stay,
Mm-hmm.
and that is consistent with Arisa. Because she has a ribbon on her head, and when she's in cat form, she's wearing the ribbon still.
She has the ribbon in cat form.
Yes. She also keeps her bangs in cat form, just like Shampoo.
All right.
And also, is basically the same breed of cat.
Is she pink?
I think she's like purple.
So...
She's just a different color, but she looks like the same type of cat, just with different hair.
Huh.
And a ribbon.
Does she appear to be a different cat?
I mean, she looks like a cat, and she's got the same, like, her bangs resemble her human form, similar to how Shampoo's bangs resemble her human form.
So they're clearly, like, you would look at these two cats and it would be like, these are different cats.
These are two very similar cats of the same breed. So you might confuse the two, but you can pay attention and be like, oh, they're slightly different. But they are the same type of cat, which I think is noteworthy for a theory I will bring up later on.
All right.
But also of note, Arisa loses her clothes magically disappear when she's in cat form, and then they magically reappear when she changes back.
What?
So she's got Genma rules.
Is she secretly an incredibly powerful martial artist?
Now, I did point out, I think there are some times where Shampoo keeps her clothes, but like, if we see her transform, she's naked. So I've said that, like, Shampoo's clothing is dependent on her, like, the rule of funny. And Arisa is in a very serious very OAV coded story. It is not funny at all. So she does not appear naked.
For shampoo, the way it usually works, from what I remember and what I have noted down here, is that she's often got what appears to be a couple of, like, a chance off screen to put clothes back on, basically. Very quickly, but...
Yes. But Arisa, like, literally, she's on top of Ranma in cat form while he's panicking, and then they pour hot water on her, and she's still on top of Ranma, but with her clothes on. She clearly did not have time to leave and get dressed, but her clothes just magically reappear.
Interesting.
So again, absolutely Genma rules of just, don't worry about the clothes.
All right. How many more examples do we have?
We have technically 3 more examples.
All right. I am running out of steam, but if we talk about them quickly, I'm game.
Okay. I think we can go through a couple of these.
All right, cool.
Real quick. So, the next example of a tribal, of like a group transformation is the Togenkyo tribe from the second movie.
That's the animal people.
Yes, these are very simple because these are just animals that have been turned into a human via a spring of drowned man, which they apparently have their own separate spring on the island. No explanation. Presumably they used whatever magic ritual they almost did in that one filler episode. But yeah, it's a spring we've seen, and it seems to function similarly. Just these are animals, and they get turned into human men.
Now, what's interesting here is that's not listed by the wiki as a Jusenkyo spring. Could it be a different type of spring?
They refer to it as the Spring of Drowned Man. It's just that they have a separate one. Again, similar to the one they tried to make in that one filler episode. And in that one, the guide implied that this new spring is still connected to the original one. It's not, they can't make a spring that doesn't already exist. They can just transfer some of the spring to a different body of water somehow via a magic ritual.
Interesting.
And this ritual is what they use to make this whole tribe of animal people who have various animal-like traits, but they are otherwise normal humans in human form.
So is it officially called a Jusenkyo spring?
I think they still call it a Nanichuan in the movie. Well, regardless of what it is, Ranma at least seems convinced that this is a Jusenkyo spring that will cancel his cursed form. I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure they just called it a Nanichuan.
And the island is called Togenkyo, and that's the flying island, and it has a magic spring, so it might be a Jusenkyo spring, or it might be something different, but they do believe it would break the curse. Whether it actually would, I don't think we ever find out for sure.
Yeah. Only other thing I will note here is that one of the members of the Togenkyo tribe was a dog.
Yes.
And we've already seen a dog turn into a human. Twice, actually, because again, the manga and the anime example with the Jusenkyo powder gave him a different appearance.
So we have two different dogs.
So now we have 3 examples. 3 examples, 2 of which of the same dog in 2 different canons, but all of them turned the dog into a different human appearance.
Didn't the anime one turn him into, you said, Ataru from Usura Yatsura?
Yes.
And then here, he's
Correct.
turned into like a sort of big dumb puppy boy.
Yes. He's still very dog-like in personality, but we never see him what he looked like as a dog.
Interesting. All right.
Now here's where I get into what I was saying about like the spring taking the path of least resistance. I have a theory. I think the springs remember the people that drown in it and uses those to create new forms. So like, maybe there was just one cat that drowned. So both people that fell in the spring of drowned cat became the same breed of cat. But lots of humans have drowned in various springs. So when the spring needs to create a new human form for a non-human creature, there's tons of human traits. The springs have a million different examples of what is a human to pull from when creating a new form. Because that dog had no human traits. Neither of them did. They all have a completely new original form that was created by the magic.
All right.
And that is my theory, and I think this is best supported with the other example, because later on we get an example of other animals that have been turned humans, this time the ones that fell in the spring of drowned girl. And at least one of them falls in, and when she comes out, she looks like Ranma.
So, if for a random animal, like the spring of drowned chicken, the spring knows only a small select group of chickens. So those chickens are going to look very similar every single time.
That's what I think, yes.
And then the spring of drowned any type of human, between spring of drowned monk, spring of drowned person, spring of drowned college professor, whatever, because it has so much information about drowned humans, it can generate a custom individualized human form, which might be identical in the case of like the animal that looks like Ranma, or it might be another custom form based on other information, such as the puppy boy.
Yeah, and who knows how it chooses these traits, but we know that it does choose different traits, as seen by the example of these dogs.
Alright.
But yeah, in regards to this tribe, I am of course referring to the now unfortunately named Musk Dynasty.
Wow. And that's Herb.
Yes.
Are they all Jusenkyo cursed?
So, the Musk Dynasty is a bit different than our usual curses. The history gives is that there's this tribe of all male warriors. They're like the opposite of the Amazons. Although the Amazons clearly have men in some location because Moose grew up with Shampoo.
Yeah.
And Shampoo has a dad.
Yeah.
But whatever. This all-male tribe, a long time ago, they took a bunch of animals and dumped them into the spring of drowned girl to turn them into humans. And then they had children with those animal people. And now, generations later, their offspring have have animal-like characteristics because their ancestors were animal people turned into humans by the cursed springs.
Okay. Wow.
So presumably the Togenkyo guys, if they have children, like that monkey man might have children who are also very monkey-like in personality, because that apparently can get passed down.
All right. It says here that Herb is a descendant of a dragon?
Yes, I think it's very funny to imagine a big giant celestial dragon drowning in a human-sized pool. I'm not sure how that works.
Well, it doesn't need to drown to get the transformation. It just needs to be immersed.
Yeah, somehow a dragon was immersed with water from the spring of drowned girl and became a human woman that then had children, and her descendants include Herb. And there are other animals as well, because Herb has his whole little minion buddies that are like wolf and tiger themed. Of note, they don't have any physical traits, other than like their eyes kind of looking a bit different, but they're just very animal-like in like personality, in the way they behave. They don't have like ears or anything like that, but they're very aggressive, they're very animalistic, and in the case of Herb, because he has like dragon ancestry, he can like manipulate ki in ways that normal humans can't, apparently, which is something that comes up in the fight.
All right, that makes sense. Now, notably, those women had to be in their transformed form to pass down those characteristics. So I think we can take a couple of things from this. If Shampoo Cat had a kid with another cat, they would have some human traits, is what we can take away from this. Does that make sense?
Potentially. In fact, it's also possible that her normal human children might be very cat-like in their demeanor. Who knows? Because clearly something is being passed down via these curses.
I feel like we're really this is weird, but yeah, okay.
It is interesting. Also of note is they had a special ladle that, like, when you sprinkle water with the ladle, it locks a transformed state, which is what they did with the animals. Like, you are a human forever now.
That's like the polar bear power. The polar bear had that
exactly
stuff.
the same. Exactly the same. Except here it's a ladle, which I do think is interesting because that is a man-made thing. It might be a magic artifact, but it is a man-made magical artifact. Which again makes me think of like the research institute doing science and stuff to interfere with the curse. Here we clearly have this magic ladle that can interfere with the curse in some form.
Magic, however, much more effective at dealing with the curse than science and technology.
Yes. The ladle becomes important because it turns out Herb also fell in the spring of drowned girl, and he accidentally got splashed with the ladle. So this is the example we see of, like, here are two different boys who fell in the spring of drowned girl, and they both resemble their male appearance, just more feminized. Whereas the monkey in this story, because basically Herb was going to make himself a bride, and she came out looking like Ranma.
Oh.
But then a skirmish happened because Herb is a dumb teenage boy who has never seen a naked woman before, so he gets distracted, and then the monkey Ranma knocks him into the spring and then sprinkles him with the ladle. And then she runs off. So, somewhere out there is a naked girl that looks like Ranma. Who knows what her adventures were. So yeah, we do see an example. Herb seems to be less different in female form. In fact, his friends didn't even notice because he was just wearing baggy clothes the whole time, and I guess he didn't sound different enough for them to think it was weird. They just thought he had a cold or something. He also doesn't seem that much shorter, whereas Ranma loses a lot of height sometimes, depending on who's drawing. Ranma's kind of short. Ranma's like the shortest boy in the entire cast, and he's one of the shortest characters in general in female form, whereas Herb is just tall in both forms. I think Ranma's just a short king.
Now, how do they break the locked curse? Because it says here that he also traps Ranma in the female form, but eventually that gets broken. It doesn't talk about how they get out of that.
Yeah, so the plot of that arc is the Herb and his friends go to meet with Cologne, because she's the wise sage who knows everything.
Yeah.
And basically ask her how they can find this mythical tea kettle that can apparently undo the magical ladle curse.
All right.
And then in the process, Ranma also gets sprinkled with the ladle, so now he and her both want the tea kettle. And eventually they use it, they undo the ladle curse that keeps them trapped in girl form. And they now go back to their usual curse of being able to change back and forth with water. And the plan was to use the ladle to lock them into male form, but then they lose it during like an earthquake thing. That's not, typical Ranma fashion. They lose the magic thing.
Yeah.
They can't use it. But yeah, eventually Ranma defeats Herb. Again, that is a entire thing. That's like the longest arc that came out at that point. It's like 2 whole volumes. Dealing with Herb. He is a big bad. He is a big, huge, major antagonist. And is like a big deal. Again, Ranma has to get the squad. He has to get Moose and Ryoga to help him against these animal people. But that story's not important. What matters is we get examples of interesting things being done with the Spring of Drowned Girl.
Now, is there anything else to look at with the herb? With these herbs and spices?
No, that's about it for that. As far as the transformations are concerned.
Yeah.
Which means we've only got one last example.
The Phoenix Tribe.
Yes, the Phoenix Tribe. And boy, are they even more weird.
Now, this is the Phoenix Tribe specifically is going to be we're going to be talking about the Spring of Drowned Akane now, right?
Yeah, that is a thing that they do. The Phoenix Tribe people are the main antagonists of the final arc in all of Ranma, the end of the manga. And yeah, at one point, they do make a spring of drowned Akane. Like, they dig a new spring at Jusenkyo, fill it with water, and dump Akane in it, specifically so that someone else can jump in, and when they come out, they have a curse form where they look identical to Akane. Now, there are some notable things about that, which requires me to explain how the Phoenix Tribe works.
All right.
So, apparently, we've talked about the source water, which is in a mountain, somewhere in this giant mountain range. It's hidden.
Yeah.
So technically, I assumed that the Phoenix Tribe made the little tap thing that turns the water on and off, because they're the ones that use it.
Okay.
And then at some point they lost that knowledge, so they had to come figure out how to get it, and all the drama happens. But basically, this source water, as explained, goes down the mountain into the valley, where the Jusenkyo springs are.
Yeah.
There is somehow another spring on top of a different mountain that is apparently the spring of drowned bird or something. I notice it's not on this list.
Oh boy, I have never heard of the spring of drowned bird.
So it never gets shown. We're just told that this spring, which at some point was on top of this mountain, who knows if it's still there, but this spring, similar to the source spring, trickled down the mountain into a valley, into rivers, where various people drank from that water. The water that was diluted with cursed water.
All right.
And over the course of generations, those people just began to develop bird traits. So they grew wings. And that doesn't seem to be a transformation. That's just a mutation that happened from drinking diluted cursed water.
All right, I'm drawing a connection here. If you take a monkey, or no, scratch that. If you take a bird, you put it in the spring of drowned girl, and then you have a kid with that bird girl, your kids are going to have bird traits. Okay? If you, as a culture, get your primary water source for drinking is a river with diluted spring of drowned bird water in it. Not enough that the water will transform you, but it's got like essence of bird in it. You know, sort of like lime water, only it's bird water, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You will also eventually have kids with bird traits.
Yeah, although it is worth noting, the Musk Dynasty people, those were like spiritual and like behavioral bird-like traits, or like animal traits.
Yeah.
Whereas the Phoenix people, those are physical traits. They grew wings.
All right, good to know. All right, so these are different things.
Yeah, they're different things. And this tribe of bird people worship a phoenix, hence the name the Phoenix Tribe.
Yeah.
And they learn all kinds of bird-related magic and martial arts techniques that I'm pretty sure have nothing to do with the transformation. They just learned that because I guess if we got bird wings, we are now bird-themed. We're going to make our martial arts bird-focused.
That's like...
It's similar to the frog hermit. The frog hermit can tame frogs, but I don't think that's because he himself is a frog. He just decided that that's what he's going to do for a living.
I think, I'm going to put this out there and tell me if you disagree. I think we should put all of the stuff related to the bird magic and the phoenix magic off to the side as its own thing for a discussion of the Phoenix Tribe in a different episode. How do you feel about that?
Potentially, but there is one example.
Okay.
That might be related. Because the whole main plot here is so the leader of the Phoenix Tribe is this boy named Saffron. Mm-hmm. And he is the Phoenix.
All right.
I don't think they elaborate on, like, is he the descendant of phoenixes? Is he, like, the reincarnation of a phoenix? Who knows?
We just don't know.
But according to their legends, and later confirmed in the arc, if he bathes in the source water, the water that becomes the Jusenkyo Springs, but before it's gone down the mountain and become cursed, if he bathes in that water, it will awaken his inner phoenix, and he basically becomes a god.
All right.
which ends up being the final boss in all of Ranma. He becomes an adult, which I think is weird, but yeah, he is essentially a godly being.
So he does succeed in doing that bathing in the water. He becomes a phoenix god, and then they have to fight him.
Yes, and he does this by bathing with the source water, which is why they need to access the little source tap to shut off the water from Jusenkyo so that it can pull up on the mountain and he can bathe in that.
So, okay. Now, one thing I'm going to point out is that we have some really great names in the Phoenix tribe. Just thrown out there. We've got Korma, Masala. Just good stuff. Just really good stuff.
Yeah, good names. Fun characters. They're not relevant to this discussion. But yeah, I just think it's interesting that the same magical source that creates the cursed springs is also the same thing that the Phoenix needs to awaken his true power.
That suggests that at the source, it's like a great magical energy that maybe the Phoenix can take use of. And maybe that's not necessarily a specifically Jusenkyo thing. Maybe any sort of great super magical power could awaken that for the Phoenix, potentially.
Yeah, and this just happens to be the one that they know of because of the villagers themselves have history with Jusenkyo as a result of the bird spring. But yeah, it is interesting that the magical source water gets used in some way. And it might not be directly connected, but there is some kind of connection there that allows this transformation to take place.
There is a different possibility. What if, at the source, by moving, the source is also a spring. The water comes out of it, becomes a new spring, because it's so powerful, but originally, that place, that location, that source is the spring of drowned god, where a god dies.
Maybe.
And if you bathe in that, but you've got to be a phoenix to do it for some reason. That makes sense and is beyond the scope of this discussion. Now, are we able at this point to move to the spring of drowned Akane, or do we have more to talk about with Phoenix? All right.
That seems to be it with the Phoenix, because again, we don't know how much is connected to Jusenkyo itself, just that the magic was necessary. But then we get to the Spring of Drowned Akane. So, the Phoenix people, they got bird wings, but they're a hidden tribe. They don't want people to see a bunch of humans flying around. So, everyone in the tribe goes down to the Jusenkyo Springs, and they take a dip in the Spring of Drowned Man or Woman, depending on which one they want, so that they can have a cursed form with no wings, where they just look like normal men or normal women.
Just innocent men.
They're just innocent people. And that's their cursed form, is where they just look like normal humans with no wings, which leads to like confusion at the start of the arc, because again, this is the final arc, so at the start, Rama's like, what kind of weird chimera monster am I fighting this time?
Okay.
And then he gets confused when they fall in a hot springs, but they still have their wings. But then later it rains and they lose their wings.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, so not having wings is their cursed form? That's weird. And then they learn about the Phoenix tribe.
All right.
So this is noteworthy because it means that the woman... Hold on, let me get her name real quick.
Kiema.
Yeah, I already closed the tab. Kiema, one of Saffron's minions, she goes into the Spring of Drowned Akane. And then when she comes out, she looks identical to Akane and uses this to trick Ranma at some point. And then even afterwards, she continues to mess with him and imply that Akane is dead because she drowned. Except it turns out she didn't, she just lost consciousness, which is our only time confirming that you don't technically have to die to have yourself immersed in the pool. But yeah, she's part of this tribe. She already has a cursed form, which is that of a wingless human. But then she gets a new cursed form of an Akane-shaped human. So the Akane appearance replaced her previous appearance, which she just looked like herself, but with no wings.
No, so let's get some basic facts of this down. The Akane Spring was made in 1987 because, as we previously discussed, all of the events happened in 1987. That's from the previous episode. So that's first of all. Second of all, the spring. Do we know who drowns? Who creates the spring?
Kiema and her minions, they literally, they kidnap Akane, and they've already made this empty spring. It does not have a curse.
Okay.
But then they dump Akane in it to give it a curse and assume Akane's identity.
And they know this is how it's going to work. They already believe this plan will work. And unlike everyone else, we have reason to believe that they understand the springs because they're this ancient, powerful, secret lore tribe. So I'm wondering if that's basically a big thing, is to manipulate the springs directly. They either had to have some sort of contact with the Jusenkyo entity or an understanding of how it functions to the level that they could drown someone and know what it would pick. So it's not picking martial artist girl. It's picking Akane.
Yeah. They might have done some magic. Who knows? If the Jusenkyo guide knows how to do magical rituals to create a second Spring of Drowned Man, maybe there's other magical things. If you can make a magic ladle that interrupts a transformation and keeps you in one form, who knows what other magic things exist? Maybe they manipulated the spring or dug it in a specific way to control which physical traits it absorbs from Akane. All we know is that it does overwrite Kiema's previous cursed appearance. And presumably that spring is still there afterwards. We could have who knows how many more Akane clones afterwards.
And those would be very distinct because they wouldn't be like the ones where it looks like you, but Akane. They would be Akane appearances.
Yeah.
Now, how do you feel about trying to draw to a close Sue?
I think we've gotten to the end. I think we did it.
Great. I've got a plug now.
Sure, go ahead. Let's celebrate. Man, that was so much research we had to do.
We did so much science. We did so much magic. We have unlocked the secrets of the Jusenkyo Springs. So my plug is I'm starting a podcast called Do You Think This Means Anything? It's a self-insert video game let's play podcast where I am currently playing through Citizen Sleeper as myself and my cat. So I'm making the decisions I would make, and I'm trapped in the video games a la the old Captain TV series. The podcast isn't out, but you can follow me at DYTTMA. That's Do You Think This Means Anything on Blue Sky. And when it gets released, it'll get released. We're going to have a full season recorded. And then I think I might do Final Fantasy VIII. So it's kind of a goofy video game podcast where a cat crawls on top of me. So there you go.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun time.
It's a little low-key at this point because Citizen Sleeper is kind of a low-key, slow-paced game, not a negative.
Makes sense.
So that's my podcast. And you can also contact this podcast at ranmapodcast@gmail.com.
You can. It's super easy to remember. And that's why I haven't changed it.
That's why hedgey's real name is...
Google wants me to.
hedgey's real name is Ranma Podcast.
It is. It is. And I can't fix that without permanently losing Ranma Podcast as my email. And I'm not losing that.
And the reason that I am doing the outro on this specific episode is because I have been lying to you this whole time. I have still been evil. I am secretly in full control of the podcast now. I apparently erased my memory, and just like Light from Death Note, or L from Death Note, whichever one it is, I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've watched Death Note. I have regained all of my memories and my evil power, and now I, symbolicgodzilla, am assuming complete control of the podcast. Mwahahahahaha.
Of course, that's why you kept asking about the Spring of Drowned Akane. That was the code to awaken your memories.
Of course.
I can't believe I fell for this.
Mm-hmm. And now you have fallen into my trap.
No, listen, this is still my podcast. Listen, we've done some important research. We finished that research. Isn't that enough? Why do we have to fight for the podcast. Let's be like Ranma and Ryoga and Moose. Why are we fighting?
Because what always happens when they ask why are we fighting, they start fighting again. And that's always going to be the truth of our existence.
Dang it, that's true.
You cannot stop me from taking the control of your podcast. All your podcasts belong to us.
Well, you know what?
Tell me what?
Maybe I can learn a thing. If we're going by Ranma rules, then I suppose it's time I use my own anything goes techniques, because I'm not just any martial artist. I am a podcasting martial artist, thanks to my newfound cursed form after falling in the spring of drowned podcaster. I can do anything podcasting relating. I can play the outro music right now, which is exactly what the listeners are hearing.
Nani?